1.9 million people in Illinois are living in poverty. Over 820,000 are experiencing extreme poverty. One group is fighting to end it. Joining me now from the Illinois Commission on the Elimination of Poverty is Dan Schwick. Dan, welcome to the show. I appreciate seeing you. So you had a meeting last night in Kankakee. It was a meeting of the Illinois Commission on the Elimination of Poverty. And what was unusual about that meeting is typically people that show up are, you know, talking heads, panelists. Last night, you had people there who live in poverty.
And that was the point of the hearing itself. The Illinois Commission for the Elimination of Poverty was appointed by the governor and the 4 legislative leaders to make recommendations to policymakers in the state about how to adopt policies that will reduce the number of people living in poverty in Illinois.
So who sits on that? So as these folks were talking about their experiences, who's actually on the commission? Because you're the folks who are going to be coming up with a plan.
There's a wide variety. It's about 24 people. It includes heads of government agencies, nonprofit organizations like mine. I work for Lutheran Social Services of Illinois. We're one of the largest human service providers in the state.
And legislators on there as well.
And there are legislators from each of the caucuses.
Is there a time deadline for your work? When does the report due?
We have annual reports. We're coming to the end of our first incarnation, and we're looking to be extended. It just so happened that at the very time that the commission was appointed, the whole bottom fell out of the economy, and
now everybody's in poverty.
So yeah, the number of people living in poverty actually went up, not as a result of our work.
Right, but, right. I understand. And so let me ask you, when you talk to these people, I want to first of all, a lot of people think poverty is something that happens to other people. It could never happen to me. Let's just kick this off right up the front. The truth is, there isn't anybody who isn't, proverbially speaking, a paycheck away from poverty.
And one of the things that was really important about the hearing last night and others that we'll do around the state is to hear from people who are actually living in poverty. Not to hear about people living in poverty, but actually to hear from them.
Were these former executives and, you know, people that...
There were a wide variety of people, and each one had a different story. The temptation was to try to fix the problem of that particular person.
Right.
But what we had to keep in mind was each one of them kind of represented thousands and thousands of others like them.
So let me talk a little bit about some of the things that perhaps, you know, go across the board for a lot of them. One of the things you were hearing last night from people in general was the problem of transportation, because you can't go for an interview if you can't get to the interview. Right. You were in Kankakee for the meeting, and a lot of folks out there are pretty much saying, we got to go into the city, and we can't.
Exactly right. They're saying 45 miles away to come into the city or the suburbs of Chicago to work, and if you don't have reliable transportation, if there isn't good public transportation, and you need a car, and you
can't afford one,
can't afford a car, or the car breaks down, it's just you can't keep a job. And
you also heard a lot of people saying, look, there might be jobs that I'm going after. The problem is they don't pay that well, and they don't even let me work all that much.
Well, one of the big problems is you can work full-time in a minimum wage job in Illinois and still live in poverty. The minimum wage comes out to about $17,000 a year, and that's under the poverty rate.
And this, of course, is the ongoing debate now in Springfield and around the country, the notion of raising the minimum wage. One of the things I found interesting in the work that you guys do, when you look at the statistics, you didn't have this level of poverty back in the 60s and the 70s. And tell our viewers how that relates to the concept of minimum wage.
The minimum wage has not kept pace with inflation over the years, and I don't know exactly what the number would be if it had kept pace when it was first adopted by Congress.
Well above what it is now.
But it's way higher than it is now, and so even people who have minimum wage jobs find it very, very difficult to be able to. Just as an example, a minimum wage job would pay about $1,400 a month. About the cost of child care, a decent child care.
And forget
place.
about rent,
so,
right?
Yeah, rent, food, gas.
Plus, the other thing you guys are finding is that poverty isn't hitting. It's not like it's equal across the board. It hits minorities. It hits women, notably women, much more significantly than men and whites.
And that part of that is just you know, huge demographic changes in our society over the last 50 years. The number of women raising children by themselves has skyrocketed, and the ability of women to be able to balance employment and caring for a family.
It adds up. So we've got a caller. Let me see if we're going to take this caller. Regina is online with a question for you about vets. Regina, hi. Welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you?
We're good. Go ahead with your question.
Good. I'm running for the 5th District DuPage County Board seat, and, of course, DuPage County. And my concern is about the veterans. When the president began to return the veterans home, from what I'm understanding, a lot of them became homeless based on the fact that they could not find jobs.
Yeah.
They did not qualify for public aid or governmental assistance. What is it we can do to curtail this from happening? Since they have served on the front line, we need to have a remedy and a resolution to make sure that they of all people are not homeless.
All right, Regina Brunn, thank you very much. So, and of course, did you have any vets there last night as part of this?
We had a couple of people. I think only one veteran testified, but there were several in the audience.
So a general response then for Regina. Obviously, the plight of veterans has to be on your front burner.
I think that's a particular subgroup of the like you said, 1.9 million people living in poverty that we have to pay particular attention to. There's no easy fix for veterans or for any of the other subgroups within people living in poverty, but we have to be able to address the multitude of needs. It's never just housing or just jobs or just child care that people need. It's that multitude of services.
And as Regina notes, I mean, it feels like maybe Illinois has to help on some degree, but when you're talking about vets, they served our country, we owe them a lot. Let me just, as we come towards the end here, poverty trends are, a lot of people think that if you're in poverty, you're probably living in the city of Chicago. That's not the case.
No. And as a matter of fact, we have seen poverty all across the state, and there are pockets in lots of different places. There's a significant rural people in poverty in rural areas
and suburbs
and suburbs, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's not a county, there's not a district in Illinois that doesn't have people living in poverty. Well, they may not be as obvious as they are in some places.
Right. Well, I appreciate the Illinois Commission on the Elimination of Poverty is doing its work. Please come back when there is a report, when there are recommendations, because I want to go through that with you, Dan Schwick. Thanks for being with me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Coming up, a lockdown at the White House, all because of a, well, pint-sized threat. I'll tell you when we come back.